Welcome to the crop update for May. Today is the 18th of May and we're standing in a rather blustery conditions just about 20 miles south of Edinburgh, southeast of Edinburgh at the HDB trial site. Joined by Neil again, and we were just discussing really how to quantify the weather over the last 4 weeks or a month or so. I started off by saying it's been fairly dry, but obviously that depends where you are, and it's been wetter with you, hasn't it, Neil?
It's wetter,
more
and
westward.
been very much wetter in the west. We've had some quite outstanding hailstones and rain in the last week or so, so that will be certainly driving up the disease pressure on some of the crops.
Yeah, and certainly the overnight frosts really haven't abated. I mean, it's slowly getting warmer, but the temperatures really, I would think, have been below average for this time of year, haven't they?
Below average, definitely.
Yeah. So it's not really grey conditions, and perhaps we'll come on to that in a minute. But perhaps if we start with winter barley, awns are peeping. But you've got an opinion really on whether there's still time and it's worth going on with a winter barley spray if you haven't yet.
If you've not had anything on and you can see a lot of disease, and it's certainly well worth going in and putting something on. Winter barley, it's the T1 spray that drives yield more than the T2, but if you don't check that disease that's established, you could be in trouble. The T2 options, depending if there's lots of Rhynchosporium disease there, you've got an SDHI's all mix. Moravis we know is very strong against Rhynchosporium and Ramularia, so that might be an option you want to think about in your winter barley crop.
And timing cut-offs dependent on product use?
Depending on product use, but I think most of the products we talked about have got 59 cut off, so there is still time to go in. The last 2 weeks have not been great for spraying conditions, so if you have missed it, you might want to do something about it. Even speaking to colleagues down further south, they've been putting sprays on for trials and then getting caught with the rain. So even when the forecast is no rain today, you can still get caught out. And then what do? Do you go back and wait and put something on, or just leave it? It's been so cool and wet for a lot of these splashborne diseases, I would definitely consider putting something on. I would not risk to, oh, it'll be all right.
Yeah, and we were talking about the crops and how they're growing through the stages, and things have slowed down a bit. Flagged leaves are just emerging on the wheats here, and they've been doing that actually for the last week. They haven't seemed to have pushed out that much, have they?
It's noticeable. You can go in crops and people have noticing this year. I was going to say this spring. It feels like spring's not here, although the sun's come out now. You just feel like the crops have been holding steady for the last 10 days. 2 weeks have not really moved on. I know the forecast is for warmer conditions by the weekend, and maybe we'll start to see that acceleration in moving through the growth stages.
Yeah, I saw earlier cycles of yellow rust treated and seem to be treated quite well, but there's bound to be pressure going forward both from septoria and yellow rust, given the sort of colder and wetter conditions that some people are experiencing. So with T2 coming up, and I doubt many people have got to T2 unless it's a very forward crop. What are your thoughts on trying to hit on both of those diseases?
So if it's septoria and you've got established septoria, we know that things that contain the ficoximid, which is in Univoc and Jessico fusion, that's very good at established, and it's quite good for eradicant activity. If you're just trying to protect, you've got the SDHIs, all mixes. We know Moravis is particularly strong at controlling septoria, protecting that upper canopy. If you've got yellow rust there as well, it's not a huge strength. Moravis, you might want to think about adding a QOI in, a straw, just to keep checking that yellow rust. And you're right, what we saw last year, usually as the temperatures increase, the yellow rust pressure declines, but the new variant of yellow rust, the champion race, just keeps going and going through the summer. So definitely don't expect the weather to check the yellow rust for you. You're going to have to think about adding something in just to hold it back.
And you mentioned earlier you were at a conference of European consultants, etc. What was the feedback there from the new races of yellow rust?
So the feedback there was very much the expectation that people were expecting yellow rust to stop last year, or as the temperatures increased, because it was a warm summer. And the yellow rust just kept cycling and kept going and kept going. And we saw it at this site as well, where we are today. The yellow rust just kept going right through the season. So that's why I'm stressing the importance of considering adding something into your tank which is going to check that yellow rust in your T2 spray timing. Otherwise it will keep going and it will take out your crop.
And down the road we're going to be T3, but that's mainly a Prothio ear
Mostly
wash.
a base, yeah, Prothio. We know that it's one of the strengths of Prothio on the ear washes. So depending on how much pressure there is, and again that will depend on the rainfall. If the rain is splashing the spores up, you might think about a Prothio TEB mix perhaps.
Okay.
And you could also think about Arizona, the full pit in there, your T3 timing as well.
Yeah, and Arizona would go in if you can on the T2 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As part of the anti-resistant strategy. It's not the most effective fungicide we have against Septoria, but what we're trying to do is manage the resistance development to the other actives that we have, and having a multi-site in there is really important. If you don't have it, we're putting more pressure on these single sites, the more likely hate to use the term break them, but the more likely we are to see resistance issues coming to the fore quite faster.
And compared to this time last year, how do you think the crops are faring in terms of disease presence? Do you think we're slightly better off? Or?
I think we're seeing more Septoria than last year. Last year certainly felt a lot drier.
Yep.
So we're seeing more. We're seeing pretty similar in terms of yellow rust. I think it's maybe been checked a little bit with the cool conditions, but it may well pick up. There's more Septoria this year. We've had more rainfall. I think there's going to be higher Septoria pressure this year.
So I suppose the take-home message really is, before you decide on what T2 you're going into the weeks, get out in the field and have a look to see what's active.
Yes, as we say, get out in the field, walk those crops, see where they are, see where that disease pressure is as well, see how low down the Septoria is, see if it's started to move up. Remember, with Septoria there's an asymptomatic phase before you see the symptoms, so the spores may already have moved up, but that's driven by temperature, and the fact it's been so cold might make you look at it and think, well, it's not there yet. It could well be there, you're just not seeing the symptoms.
Yeah, useful stuff. Spring barley still sort of tillering away, a little way off any T1 application. Quite a few growers this year have struggled to get malting barley contracts and are growing malting barley varieties, but possibly for the feed market. So there is a question perhaps about spend on fungicides, T1, T2. What are your thoughts on options there?
The T1 fungicide with spring barley in warm springs, it can race through the growth stages. We did some trials a few years back, one of my colleagues looking at the importance of the T1 spray. It's not as important as in winter barley. If you walk the crops and the crops look clean, and then it's perhaps one you could think about either missing out completely or cutting back on your spend. It'll be the T2 spray that's going to drive the yield in your spring barley. So again, keep walking the crops, seeing what the disease pressure is like, seeing how the season's going. We've said before on previous cropcasts, the disease pressure in your locality. Is your farm susceptible to the conditions that favour ramularia? What do you need to think about in your T2 spray timing? But again, spring barley crops, just keep walking, keep seeing what the disease pressure is like. As you say, Mark, some people go for a T1.5 spray, which is, in terms of disease control, not the best option, but if it gives you that control and enough to protect your yield for the feed crop, then that's all you need.
Yeah, and actually with spring barley, the awns themselves are the powerhouse for yield, aren't they? So I suppose you really want to protect those. And if the danger is if you go too early, perhaps you're losing out on that protection.
Absolutely. So, and we know with ramularia, it's, as strange as it sounds, the later you go, the better the control you get.
Quite a lot of resistance to chems on ramularia in terms of.
We know well, apart from the adepidin, the new SDHI from Syngenta, we've got complete resistance to the SDHI, so you won't get anything in terms of ramularia control. You will get something from prothioconazole, the azole-based product. You'll get nothing from the QOIs. You can get something, there's the other azole, mifentrifluconazole from BSF that has reasonable activity against ramularia.
Okay, so if you do think you're at risk or you are finding ramularia, what's your sort of better choice of product to go for?
As I said before, if you think you're a high risk and the conditions are so warm and wet conditions which favour ramularia, we know Neil Havis is the most effective product that we have. If you think there's less pressure, then look at the Revistar. A lot of people are interested in the Revi Pro this year, which is a combination of the two azoles, methylene-trifluconazole and prothioconazole. It has a later application date than the Revistar product, which had 45 to 49, so you can go a bit later, and it's got reasonable activity, and I think it's quite competitively priced this year as well.
Okay, that's great. We'll just finish off by mentioning also rape. Seems to be flowering forever and ever.
Yes, absolutely. Just what I was saying, people are remarking, how long is this flowering? And the hailstones that we had, I expected to see more petal loss, but it seems to be that the crop's holding on to its petals, which is good because we don't want the sclerotinia to get onto the... So again, as you say, people are thinking, when do I put my mid-flowering spray on? It used to be 2 weeks, now it seems to be 5-6 weeks that's been flowering this year. But again, there's good options there. It's STHI azole mixes that you can do because you're trying to control light leaf spot and also give some sclerotinia protection.
Hopefully another good year for pod set.
It looks like it could be another good year. What we need now is some sunshine to power and get that yield. We're seeing this with a lot of crops, the yield potential's there. It's can we get the conditions now to actually give that yield to finish them off.
Yeah, great. Well, that's it for May. Thank you for dialing in, and we'll see you next month.